The Awakening, the Revised Edition by Lilac Moon. Chapter 27. A Family Reunited. Padme watched Anakin trek up from the lake early that morning. She yawned deeply, having just woken up and stood at the railing of the veranda, letting the morning sun warm her. She wore a long, silky white robe, and she slept later than normal. Luke followed him and they climbed the steps. "Morning, Mum," Luke said as he hugged her, before heading inside to shower. "Morning, sweetie. Breakfast should be ready by the time you're done," she called, and then yelped as Anakin picked her up in his arms and spun her around. She giggled as he kissed her passionately. "Good morning. You're certainly in a good mood," she purred as they held each other close.
"How could I not be? We're home, in the lake country, and I have you. Everything's perfect,"
Anakin replied as he kissed her again. Padme cooed into his kiss as he moved his lips over hers with a tender passion. "Wow, it really is a good morning," Padme said dreamily as he finally released her lips.
"You know I love showing you how much I love you, and I sensed that you're a bit nervous,"
he replied. She nodded. "I just know my mother is going to react badly. I know Rex and Ahsoka said they were happy to go in and explain everything to them before bringing them back here, but I don't think they realize what they're getting themselves into. I know my mother is going to react badly," Padme fretted.
"Maybe at first, but once she sees you and meets her grandchildren, her anger will melt into joy. I'm sure of it,"
Anakin told her. "I hope you're right, my love. But you don't know my mother," Padme replied.
"Well, no matter what, I'm going to be right by your side. Now, let's go and have breakfast. I'm starving,"
he suggested. "Me too," she said as she joined him inside. Annie giggled in delight as she skipped along the stone path with her parents following her. They had decided to get up early and begin to trek towards the majestic waterfalls for a family picnic with Annie. Satine and Obi-Wan both thought it was best to let Padme interact with her family first, and let them adjust to the shock before returning. They had packed a picnic and were looking forward to their little family outing. Annie's eyes were wide with wonder as she took in all her surroundings. She had never seen such a place that was so vibrant with colour and life, for the desert was sadly all she knew. That was one thing both Obi-Wan and Satine were glad they would be changing. "She looks so happy," Satine mentioned.
"I know, it's wonderful. I'm sorry that we had to spend all those years on that dreadful sandball,"
Obi-Wan said. "Me too, but it was necessary. And though we didn't necessarily love our location, we were happy because we were together," Satine replied. He nodded.
"Yes, but here is so much nicer. I don't miss that bloody heat,"
Obi-Wan said. "I second that," Satine replied. "How do you think things will go once Rex and Ahsoka break the news to Padme's family?" Satine asked.
"Well, they will suddenly be shocked and possibly even angry at first. But if they are anything like Padme, then they will be quickly overjoyed by the news and reunion they'll have with her. Rex and Ahsoka should be almost to her village by now. Which means I guess we'll find out about dinner time when they return,"
Obi-Wan replied. She nodded. "Until then, we're going to enjoy our first family outing that doesn't involve sand," Satine added in a louder voice, for the giant falls were getting closer and louder. They heard Annie laugh as she saw several butterflies whisk through the air in front of her. Satine smiled. "Come on, let's catch up with our little one," she said as they hurried inside.
"How dare you!"
Jobal growled through clenched teeth. Ahsoka and Rex looked at each other as they sat on the sofa in the living room of the Naberi home. They had come to the door just 30 minutes ago and told Solar they were friends of Anakin and Padme's, and they had something important to discuss. Solar had then let them in eagerly, wanting to know anything at all about her late sister and brother-in-law, especially if it concerned their mysterious deaths. But what they had just been told was an incredible story, one that sounded too fantastic to be true. It angered her pessimistic mother, but she found herself only hoping it could actually be true. Anakin and Padme were alive, or so these people said. Could it be true?
"How dare you come into my home with your lies! Padme is dead! Let her rest in peace!"
Jobal cried. "Is it true?" Solar asked, and Ahsoka nodded.
Yes, they were awakened from their frozen state less than a month ago,
Rex stated. And this carbonite stuff, why exactly were they frozen in it again? Solar asked, trying to understand. My master was gravely injured in his battle with Palpatine and Vader 18 years ago, just before the inception of the Empire. He was dying and fell into a coma. The healer was certain he would die within a matter of days, unless his body was somehow given the necessary means to properly recover. Suspended animation was the only answer, Ahsoka explained. And what does this have to do with Padme? Why was she frozen too? Solar asked.
At the time Anakin slipped into a coma, Padme was in labour. She gave birth to twins and then faded away as well. Her condition mirrored Anakin's and perplexed the healers. When she thought she had lost Anakin, her heart was broken, and she slipped away with him. So the healers froze her as well, and for the last 18 years they were hidden away, until it was determined that Anakin was finally healed.
Rex continued. Padme had twins? Solar asked.
Ahsoka nodded. I can't believe you're buying into this farce, Solar,
Jobel scolded.
If I had 2 grandchildren by Padme, then how come I have never met them?
Jobel questioned.
In order to protect them, we had to separate them at birth. We couldn't bring one of them to you, because if Palpatine had got an inkling that this child you were caring for could have possibly been the child of Anakin and Padme, he would have had the child killed. We had to let the entire galaxy, including you, believe that they were dead, and their unborn children with them,
Rex stated. Leia was raised on Alderaan by Queen Organa and her husband, Senator Organa. I have spent these last 18 years as her bodyguard, Ahsoka explained.
And Luke was sent to Tatooine to live with Anakin's stepbrother and his wife. Obi-Wan and I kept a close watch over him over the years. They were just recently reunited with each other and their parents,
Rex stated. We just left Yavin 4, which was where the rebel base was located, until we were discovered by the Empire. Anakin and Luke destroyed the Empire's new weapon, the Death Star, before it could destroy us. But now the new base is under construction, and we've come back to Naboo to lay low in the Lake Country until it's time to leave for the new base, Ahsoka said.
If Padme and her husband are alive, then why didn't they just come to us themselves?
Jobel questioned angrily.
Because your village is too close to Theed. There's a bounty on Anakin's head the size of Coruscant, and the rest of us as well. We're both taking a risk by coming to Theed too, but we're willing to take that risk in order to reunite you with your family,
Rex stated. What family? I don't know my grandchildren, or my son-in-law, and I might as well not even know my daughter. She shut me out of her life almost completely during her terms as senator, and then she died. Her father went to his grave thinking his little girl was dead. Jobel ranted. Mother, please, calm down. Solar pleaded. No, Solar, he was never the same. And now I find out that the whole thing was one big hoax. If my daughter is alive, then she has a lot to answer for, Jobel ranted. Mother, calm down. If Padme is alive, then this is a blessing, Solar replied. Not after all the heartache she has caused. Not after all the nights I cried myself to sleep because of her, Jobel sobbed. Solar went to her mother and consoled her with a hug. Mum, it's going to be okay now. Padme is alive. We're going to see her, Solar said.
We'll give you a few minutes to pack some things, but don't dawdle too long. We shouldn't stay here much longer,
Rex said. Solar nodded as she, Jobel, and her daughters went upstairs to pack. Bounty hunter Cad Bane switched the holocom off in his hideout, as Darth Vader himself finished the mandate he had initiated. The bounty hunter was surprised about the information he had just learned. It seemed that after all these years, Anakin Skywalker was alive, which actually made Cad Bane excited. He had a score to settle with the Jedi, which had become impossible when he had learned that Skywalker and his pretty little wife had perished in a ship crash. But now that he was alive, Cad Bane intended to be the one to collect the bounty on his head. He would then become a legend when he presented Skywalker and his little family to Vader. The money would set him for life, and his name would be forever glorified among all bounty hunters. Now the challenge was to find where Skywalker was hiding. He stood up and holstered his blasters. as he turned to his posse.
We're going to be the ones to find Skywalker. Tatooine usually has all the gossip, so we'll start there, Bane ordered as they followed him to the ship.
Leia stirred the cake batter, following her mother's instructions. Padme checked the casserole in the oven, and then went back to chopping the vegetables. "How's it coming?" Padme asked. "Okay, I think. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I've never really cooked or baked anything before." Leia replied, "You're doing fine. My mother taught me to cook, and I was hoping I could teach you." "I don't have much time to do much cooking when I was a member of the Senate either. But after I married your father, I always tried to make him a home-cooked meal, which he always appreciated. And since he and your brother are training, their appetites will be nothing short of amazing," Padme replied. Leia smiled. "You're nervous, aren't you, about seeing your mother again?" Leia asked. Padme smiled thinly. "You are definitely your father's daughter. And, yes, I'm a little nervous," Padme replied before continuing. "I love my mother deeply, and I know she loves me. But she was always critical of my decision to serve in the Senate after my term as Queen ended. She always wanted me to come home and settle down like Solar did. And now that she knows I was married and that I hid it from everyone, I know she will have some criticism for me. Even though I know she'll be happy that I'm alive at all. And she'll be very happy to meet her grandchildren," Padme assured her. "Well, she shouldn't be too critical, because you're a good person, and you and Daddy did what you did for love," Leia replied. Padme smiled and hugged her. "Thanks, sweetheart. Now let's get that cake in the oven before your father comes in and tries to eat all the batter," Padme said, making Leia giggle as they poured it into the cake tin. Padme finished setting the table on the veranda for the evening meal, as Satine and Leia helped her. Rex and Ahsoka were on their way up with her family, and they would soon come face to face. Anakin took Padme in his arms and held her close as they waited. Luke and Leia joined them, while the Kenobi family stood quietly in the background. Annie wasn't sure what was going on, but she knew that things had turned serious for some reason, and that meant she was supposed to be on her best behavior. Rex and Ahsoka led the Naberi women through to the living area and onto the veranda. Solar gasped as she saw the truth for herself. "I can't believe it! It's true!" Solar exclaimed as she ran to her sister and enveloped her in a big hug. "Oh, I've missed you, Solar," Padme said as tears slipped down her cheeks. "Look at you! I can't believe it! You haven't changed at all!" Solar exclaimed in amazement. Padme nodded. "Annie and I had to be frozen in carbonite for the last 18 years. I'm so sorry for the deception," Padme apologized. "You're sorry?" Jobal snapped, catching their attention. "Sorry isn't good enough this time, Padme. We've mourned you for the last 18 years. Your father was never the same, and he died thinking his little girl was murdered by the Empire!" Jobal yelled. Padme shrank back into Anakin's arms. "Daddy's dead?" she squeaked. Solar nodded. "His heart failed him 5 years ago, and Darad was killed in a construction accident 2 years ago," Solar replied. "Oh, Solar, I'm so sorry," Padme cried. "It's not your fault, baby sis. And Daddy's death isn't Padme's fault either, Mother," Solar said sternly. "Mum is right. If we have to blame anyone, it's Emperor Palpatine. He caused all this. He's the reason we were all torn apart, and the reason so many secrets had to be kept," Pooja spoke up. "You're Pooja Naberi, the Senator of Naboo? I recognize you from the Senate," Leia said. Pooja smiled. "I recognize you too, Leia Organa. I had no idea that we were actually cousins all these years," Pooja replied. "You're Senator of Naboo?" Padme asked in surprise with a smile. Pooja nodded and hugged her aunt. Jobal snorted. "Oh, yes, she's been trying to follow in your footsteps since you were supposedly killed, and Solar did nothing to stop her," Jobal grumbled. Solar rolled her eyes. "I'm very proud of Pooja, and you should be too. Her father and Daddy were proud too that she followed in her aunt's footsteps," Solar said. "Oh, both of you have grown up to be so beautiful," Padme said as she hugged both Ryu and Pooja. "We've missed you so much, Aunt Padme," Ryu sobbed. Solar smiled and then eyed Anakin mischievously. "I knew it," she announced, making Anakin grin. "I knew when you two came to visit us just before the war started that you were hot for each other," Solar blurted out. "Solar!" Padme cried in mock outrage. It seemed her sister hadn't changed a bit. Anakin chuckled and Padme elbowed him playfully in the ribs. You're terrible, as always. Padme mused playfully to her sister. Oh, just wait until we have time to catch up. Just the two of us. I have all kinds of questions about your secret marriage, Solar teased. Oh, great, but in the meantime, maybe you'd like to meet your niece and nephew, Padme said, motioning to their grown twins. Luke and Leia, this is your Aunt Solar, your Grandma Jobal, and your cousins Ryu and Pooja, Padme announced. It's so wonderful to meet you both. Talk about a pair of copies. They look just like the two of you, Solar said to Anakin and Padme as she hugged them. It's great to meet you too. And you, Grandmother, Luke said. Jobal softened considerably, and tears rolled down her cheeks as she hugged the grandchildren she never knew she had.
Well, perhaps we can continue to get acquainted at the evening meal,
Obi-Wan suggested. That's a good idea. I forgot to introduce the Kenobi family. This is Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, his wife Satine, and their daughter Annie, Padme said. Pleasantries were exchanged again, and they sat down to the evening meal together. The evening and the next few days would be interesting, to say the least, as a family would become whole again. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I like that one, though I'm 50-50 on Jobal. I can definitely see where her rage is coming from, but, well, there's always one family member, isn't there? Anyway, the rest of it's really nice. I'm sorry if all the high voices are getting confused, because believe me, I'm getting confused. But frankly, the amount of deep voices I do tires my throat out just as much, so what can you do? Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.